Welcome back, where we have Bunny Carpenter here, who's going to give us a Golden Rain Foundation update. Well, welcome. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good. And you were saying that you had a very busy weekend, and that's always good. Productive, I hope.
Very productive, but you know what I do. I have a lot to do with writing contracts and helping out with the policies and the verbiage of the policies. So I spent a lot of my weekend doing that this
well,
weekend.
we had a little rain, so not a bad day to
Wonderful.
spend indoors.
That rain was wonderful.
It was. Too bad we didn't have more of it. We kept talking about it like it was going to be some big downpour, and unfortunately it didn't produce as much rain as we had hoped. But so you've got some great information for us, and I'm just going to let you jump right in, and you've got some reserve study results.
Yes, we did have the reserve study results, and this might have been mentioned before, but it came across, the report was great. It showed that that GRF has the money in their reserves to do what they need to do with the clubhouses and all of the amenities that we have the responsibility for the next 50 years.
Wow.
And that gave me a great comfort feeling, because always when it comes up to maintaining the clubhouses, everybody says, "Oh, you can take a loan." And I say, no, we don't have to.
Well, that's good.
We have the money.
That's good.
Yeah.
So your fund, it says $7,500 transfer fee. So tell me how that all is.
Well, and the verbiage here, it's a $7,500 facilities fee.
Oh, okay.
And that's when you buy in to Laguna Woods, the buyer pays that facility fee. And so that is quite a revenue stream for GRF. And the total amount at the end of the year, maybe $4 million, something like that. Okay. I'm not quite sure of the figure.
Okay.
And it really helps as far as keeping up our amenities.
Okay. And then it says $17 per month per manor. So is that what that $7,500? Or that's 17 in addition.
Right, the 17, and that's consistent. Okay. And that's what I really appreciate our treasurer, Jim Hopkins, is that he figured out a way that we can be consistent as to what the per manor per month is going to be for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't fluctuate, doesn't have to fluctuate.
And that's part of their assessment, right?
Right.
Okay, that's just the part that goes to the, like you said, the capital requirements.
Right.
Okay, good. Well, it's good to know. And I, there's so much to offer here, and there is a lot of maintenance, and there is a lot of land, and so naturally, people who would move in would expect something like that.
I can tell you that this community is the best, and I was really curious. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but everybody was moving to Texas, right?
Yeah.
So much cheaper to move to Texas. So my friend Yvonne, who is also on the board, we went over to the Top Del Webb in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And even though it's a beautiful community, none of them compare to the amenities that we have. Nothing. And especially the location that we have.
Yeah.
Being right by the beach, close to the performing arts, shopping, school, anything you want to do, it's here. And I had a renewed, fully appreciation when I came back.
That's a good idea. I mean, people should check around, right? I mean, there's other places you could live, but like you said, there's so much to offer here. And when you're comparing, HOA costs and what you get for them, you can find that when you go to out of state, the cost is still the same per month, but like you said, you're not getting the facilities. I mean, you have golf courses here, and some don't even include that.
Right, that's absolutely, the golf courses are run by a separate organization. Yep.
Well, there you go. All right, well, that's great information.
Thank you.
And so everybody should be, definitely happy that they've got what they've got here, so that's awesome. Okay, so obviously you guys are cost conscious, and that is why you're able to have a nice reserve.
Right, and that was why we were so extremely pleased with the reserve study, that showed, that we have the money that we need in the reserve. But But I have to tell you, what we go through at budget time, is really something. It's quite a process, and staff puts a lot of information together. And we just approved the budget for next year.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, we got information from each department. We went over every item that they wanted to present in the budget.
Okay.
And we just like to make sure that the residents know that we always have them in mind.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's a lot of things to consider, because now when you have minimum wages going up and things like that, many people are looking at that as something, to take a job. And so you have to be able to be competitive too. And so that's not just here, that's all over.
Right,
making
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, and as Brian has reported recently, that we finally have been able to add more people, because the labor market is a tough market.
Yeah.
So that we can open up more of our clubhouses.
Exactly, and I know there has been expanded hours, and of course the table tennis is now expanded, so thank goodness. Okay, so let's talk about, you approved an internal dispute resolution policy.
Yes, even though David Sterling has a provision for an internal dispute resolution, I thought it was very important that GRF have one also. And the whole purpose of that is that it's not a disciplinary, hearing when you do this. It means that these people that can't come to an agreement, that we meet and we discuss and we come to an agreement. And that is so necessary, especially with recreation. Mm-hmm. And the clubs. It's really, we have different problems in recreation than the mutuals have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yes, and yet you still need something in place, like you said, which would cover everything. And in fact, so the new hearing body, so a joint body which hears a variety of different cases.
Right. Well, the whole purpose of that is that we have a hearing body that consists of United, Third, and GRF.
Right.
And the whole purpose of that was basically so that we can treat harassment in a timely manner.
Okay.
And that it would be fair. Now, mind you, with this policy, the people that come before the board, the hearing body, can, I'm looking for the right word, appeal.
There you go.
To their board,
Oh, okay.
The decision.
Right.
But it's a body that we hope that we will be able to enforce and solve some of these problems.
Right.
Right now, GRF has approved it, and Third has approved it, but United still needs to approve it before we can go forward.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Now, an ad hoc committee for compliance. What is that? Is that part of what you were just talking about? Or
No, this is something new.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, we have so many different issues in recreation. So we want to have a complete understanding of the process, with compliance, and how we can work together to improve that process. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things with compliance, and one of the big issues is that when you file a complaint, that nobody knows what's happened. And so we would like to have a process where we can have a report basically telling us, well, if this person came before this hearing, we'd like to know, have they already been served? We don't, there's certain, privacy laws that we have to adhere to, right. But we also want to incorporate in the process so that we are apprised of what's happening. So there's just little things. There's other things like the investigations. We want to look at how the investigations are and what the criteria is for, and how we can help in that particular area.
Yeah, well, it can be a very sensitive subject.
It is a sensitive subject.
Right.
Yes.
Right, so you got to handle it very carefully. Tennis. So many people just love to play tennis here. We've got great courts. You got some new stuff.
We do. We have, how many courts do we have? 10. I think we have 10 courts. And one of the biggest issues in trying to get these operating rules was there was some people that wanted the reservation system and some people didn't.
Okay.
So during the pandemic, the reservation system was implemented. And then after the pandemic and everything started to open up more, they basically wanted to do it away with it, and they wanted to go back to their traditional way of making reservations. And so we decided, Recreation and CAC said, okay, we're going to try it out for 6 months. And we did try it out for 6 months. And at the end of that 6 months, there was approximately 1,000 people that signed up for the reservation system. So GRF was obligated at that point in time to at least put in the reservation system for 3 courts.
Okay.
And that's what we've done.
Okay.
Yes. Only for 3 courts. The other 7 are the traditional way.
Okay.
And so finally, when that got settled, we were able to pass the operating rules.
Okay.
Yes. But that was the big issue.
So that's been passed, and the certain hours of the day apply to those 3 courts. Okay.
Right.
All right, got it.
No, it's certain. There's 3 courts.
3 courts, right.
Right.
And okay. All right, got it. Perfect. And then the garden center rules. We just actually were visiting with the garden center over there with Christy, and we learned all about the garden centers. It was awesome. And then she mentioned that the operating rules were being voted on. So,
well, that has been a real challenge for the last few months.
Yeah.
And I think we've got it right now. Basically, we had to send them back to the CAC just for some Scribner errors. And we got those cleaned up, and we're sending it back to the board again in October to be approved. But I do have to say that staff, CAC, all of us have worked on those rules, because worked on the rules with the garden center people, so that we have something that is workable.
yeah.
And I think we're finally there.
Well, it's a lot. I mean, when we covered the areas, I mean, there was just so many different types of plots and things like that. And some people want some things and some people want other things. So it's really difficult to probably all come together. But nonetheless, it's looking great over there. So good job over there.
So which one were you at?
We were at both. We started at
went to
Garden
both.
Center 1
Okay.
and then Garden Center 2. So we're going to have a 2-part series on both. So
I
that'll
think
be
that's wonderful.
hopefully airing starting next week. So we're going to do that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we went through everything, so it'll be fun. All right, so let's, we've got one more thing here, a vehicle replacement policy.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, GRF spends about $1 million plus a year on vehicles. It has been said that we have more vehicles in our fleet than we need for the size of organization that we are. But everybody takes ownership, you know how that is.
Yes.
And so when our new director, Robert Carroll, came on board, he took a look at the policies, and he also even took a look at the fleet. So this vehicle replacement policy covers the criteria, for replacement of the vehicles, decides whether you want to, they make the decision whether you want to lease or buy, some decision factors that would go into the policy, and also a review of the fleet. And what it doesn't say in here, and I don't have the exact figures, is that when he presented his package before the VMS board, then he showed that there were some vehicles that could be removed, we didn't need anymore, and that we didn't have to replace, that would decrease our vehicle fleet, I guess you would have to say. But don't quote me on this, but I think there's about 141 vehicles.
And that includes trucks and all sorts of vehicles.
Vans, and also consideration was made as to, we have the high-end trucks, and the question is, do we need the high-end trucks?
Right.
We also have to take in consideration the California requirements to go to all electric.
Right.
I mean, there was a lot involved, and I think that Robert Carroll did a great job as to coming up with a policy for basically for the valuation. So that's what this is all about, and I have to tell you, I really appreciate the work that he's doing.
Okay, well, good. Yeah. Well, I think he might be my next director I'll have on. We'll have Robert on to talk about that. So that'll be awesome. All right, golf fees. You had a ton of people showed up at that meeting.
They always do every year.
It was a lot of folks.
And it's difficult. I can tell you it's difficult.
Yeah.
But what we're doing at this point in time, it's on 28 review.
Yeah.
But I will have to say that after the meeting, that I talked to Jim Hopkins, who is the treasurer, and I said, let's get together, let's take a look at this again and see what we can come up with. And the golfers got the wrong impression. The whole audience got the wrong impression. And GRF is never out there to do a revenue grab. And I'm afraid that was the impression that they had. We are required by Davis Sterling to only raise fees, that can offset the expenses. And so the presentation, didn't really show that that's what was happening.
I see.
And so we're going to all get together and then it'll be readdressed, at the next meeting. But I just have to say, we're not looking to do any money grab. And I promised as GRF president that we would only raise fees if it justified.
Right.
If it was justified, and that was it. So,
well, in 28 days, we'll talk to you again about that.
Yes, absolutely.
And then lastly, but not least, is, of course, being kind. And this kind of goes back to what you started our conversation on, is, anti-harass, whatever the case may be. We want to be kind and nice, and that's what Thrive's all about, too.
Yes, it is. And I talk a lot about respect. And my own belief, is that you treat others as you want to be treated.
Right.
And I think when we have that in mind, then our attitude towards things and how we approach them is really different.
Yeah.
And so even though, there may be, people that you may raise your voice at, it doesn't mean that you don't appreciate them. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So, so I think we need to keep in that mind. And one of the things that it's been some of the talking points among people is after the pandemic, it just seemed like people just wanted to blurt out, and I think it was really an effect of being, indoors so much.
Right. Yep. Cooped up, frustrated, isolated.
Isolated.
And so I think and it's going to take time for us to really get through all of that.
I think so too.
So good reminders, and thank you so much for all the great information. I appreciate it.
And thank you.
All right.
All right.
If you have any questions or comments, you can always send a message to generalmanager@vmsinc.org, and it will be sent to the correct person. We'll be right back.